Welcome to part 2 of Asset Process Management with Canto Cumulus. This was a summary screen of part 1 in which I explained that with the standard Cumulus 9 functionalities, you have one simple interface being sites, an easy mail communication with the upload link and the upload functionality, the mail collection basket, a simple file delivery with the upload functionality, and all assets finally nicely centralized inside Cumulus. Now I'm going to show you how you can do asset process management with Workflow Manager. First of all, the process we discussed was the interaction of the project manager, the designer, and the copywriter to create a product sheet. Well, if this is a recurring process in your company, then the Cumulus administrator can make a template for it, a workflow template for it inside the Cumulus client, which looks something like this. And then when the product manager has to execute such a process, he simply goes to the Cumulus sites environment, logs into sites, looks for all the images that are documents that he wants to use in this process and puts them in the collection basket, and then simply clicks on the workflow portal button at the top. This gives him either a list of workflows that he or she can start, processes that he or she can start, but in this example he is only allowed to do one type of workflow. So in this type of workflow he can set the workflow name and a start date, by default today. And then the next step is that he can either upload files inside the Cumulus environment, or he can just add the files that were in the basket. As I said up front, we added the files to the basket that are necessary in this document, in this process. So here they are. You can still remove them if one of them is not necessary. Then the next step is that you define with Workflow Manager your participants up front. In the template, we defined which role we wanted to use. There is also a Workflow Manager version where you can define the user in the template, in which case you don't have to do it here. But usually in a role environment you would define them here, and that way I selected Michael for the design, myself for project manager, and Martin for copywriting. In any workflow template, the administrator can define upfront a number of fields that are important to fill in at any point in the workflow. For example, here at startup, I added the project ID being 1245. Finally, the instructions are the most important part. In the template that was built by the Cumulus administrator, he will have provided generic descriptions of what is expected of the user in every task. Here we are executing a specific workflow, a specific task to perform, so here we can describe what we want to do. We can describe it in this particular field, or as we have seen in part 1, we created a briefing document in Word, so we can upload that inside this section. When I'm ready with all the parts of starting this workflow, which can be visible or invisible for the user, could be that they don't have to see the input records, or they don't have to see the workflow details, or they don't have workflow information. And this interface can be complex or simple. Then finally the user clicks on save. There's a verification. If everything is fine, the task is started. Now this user, this product manager, didn't have to create anything special inside Cumulus. It's the RoboFlow backend, the Workflow Manager backend that is going to perform these tasks automatically. So the copywriter is notified by email that he has a commission work to do. So the user clicks on the link. On the left, he gets a detailed description of what is expected from him, the additional instructions that were added by the user, and you can see even the briefing document to which he has direct access. Also the workflow information, one or more fields can help him for performing his job. The files he has to use can be here, but we decided in the template that it would be easier if all the files for this workflow are in the workflow collection. So the user just has to click here and can download them all to perform his task. When he's ready, when he has created the copy, in this case, he can upload the file right in here. He can just simply drag and drop the file and it will be cataloged inside Cumulus. Not just inside Cumulus, it will be saved inside this particular workflow. So everybody participating in this workflow might have access, if permitted, to this file. My job as this copywriter is done, so all I have to do is I have to submit the task. Now the backend knows that the task is finished and automatically the product manager is notified. So this is a second big difference with the first thing that I showed you in part 1 standard Cumulus, is that now the product manager doesn't have to check that web collection to see if it was in the upload collection already delivered. No, the user gets notified by email, and if he clicks on it, it brings him right to that file. Another thing that was not really available in the previous example is that you were not able to approve or reject, to communicate easily to the copywriter that you might require changes. So if I click here, I can either choose to approve or reject. In this example, I choose to approve. I save, and my approval text and who approved it and when is saved with this record and will travel with this record throughout the whole process. So this information is available for anybody who has access to it. When I'm finished with my job, I can submit. So now the product manager has approved the copy, and the next step is that Michael will be notified. Michael, the designer, will be asked to provide a design, and Michael could go to his mail, but if Michael is working very often in Cumulus, he could also just go to the workflow task list, which gives him a list of all his tasks to perform. He can then select one and see the mail that is in his mailbox, and he can see exactly the text in there and click on the link to open the mail. To open the link, and that brings him back into the task, which is a commission task. He's commissioned to create the design. Again, all the information is available from previous steps, and the documents are also available. Here's the copy, and here are the files that he can use for the design. So once he downloaded them, and once he's ready creating the InDesign document, he now can upload the result back into Cumulus. And here it goes. Right inside the basket of this workflow will this new file be stored. we know exactly throughout the whole process who delivered this file at which moment in time. My job, Michael, as designer is finished, so I submit the task. Again, the next person, being the product manager, is notified, because the product manager will be notified if a new design is delivered. He can see this new design and can approve. Notice that he doesn't see the other one because he doesn't need the copy to be approved anymore. He already did that. All he needs to do is approve this one. The copy could be found in the workflow collection. So he decides, he downloads the file and can approve it. Sometimes it's not the InDesign file, but the PDF. First, the proofing is maybe done on a low resolution PDF and not on the original InDesign file. The InDesign file might be delivered by the designer at a later stage, once the copy and the design are approved. So I approve the file, I can type a little text with it, and I submit. And this is exactly the same process as we did before in Cumulus, but now using the Cumulus the Workflow Manager integration. We had the same sites interface, there was still the same easy mail communication, simple file delivery, and all assets in Cumulus centralized. But the advantage with Workflow Manager was that you had one start of the whole process, not the user having the product manager in between every step, having to find the files again, putting them together, putting them in the basket, mailing the basket. All that is taken care of by Workflow Manager. And the Workflow Manager backend takes care of that automatic mail communication. It takes care of the automatic file delivery. You don't have to put it in baskets. It does that for you. And it's all nicely centralized in one process, in one environment inside Cumulus. You don't have to go, you don't have 17 collection baskets, just one. Processes can of course be much more complex than the simple one we just did. And the simple one, this example has reoccurring approvals, or can move files outside or to another department and wait for another type of approval, etc., etc. All this can simply be built inside Workflow Manager, inside the Workflow Builder up front, and then reused as many times as necessary. Don't forget that Workflow Manager can also perfectly interact with RoboFlow or with any other external application. It can provide files in drop folders, it can do many things, so it's not alone in the world but nicely integrated inside your company's flow. Asset process management generates a lot of communication and collections and results and many statuses of processes. It's very important at any stage for a manager, or even for the participants themselves, to have an environment to know what stage a process is in. Who are we waiting for? Well, that is exactly the Workflow Reporter. The Workflow Reporter is integrated in the web server console and allows you to get access to those workflows or processes that you are allowed to access. So you can have a look at your active workflows, the processes in which you participate. You can have access to the pending tasks, which is exactly the same as inside sites where you have access to your to-do list. These are your tasks to perform now, or the tasks of your roles, which means the people with the same role. It might be that you are allowed to take over your colleague's work if he's not there. So all these things are just centralized in one environment. If if the task mail, if the current task is for you, you can click on a workflow and you can open the task mail, similar as what we did in sites. So you don't have to go to your mailbox, or maybe it's not your mailbox but your colleagues, where you have the permission to see his workflow mails. Then this can be available, and by a simple click you could start a task. You can also go to the current task if you want to see who you are waiting for. At this point, for instance, in this process, we are waiting for Peter. We are waiting for input, the product manager. You can see what files were provided to him and maybe what comments or approvals it already had. If the task was finished, there would also be output records. But as we know that this task isn't finished, there will be no output records. But you have a complete traceability. Same for email. You have a complete traceability of all the notifications that were done to this for this task and to which users. You can even open the mail and resend it. If you are permitted, you can reassign a user to this task, or set a task duration, or change the task duration. And you can also have an overview of not just the current task, but the whole workflow. You can have a view on who delivered which files at what point and who performed the task on it. Commission task or an approval task, you can see provide copy, approve copy, provide design, approve design. And in this case, all these tasks for this workflow are completed, but it could have been that one of these tasks were not completed, and then you would see, okay, we are waiting here for this or that person. So you have a summary where you just see it per file and not in every step. You can go to the individual workflow tasks. All that information is available. Here, if you are permitted, you can reassign a role. You can restart a complete workflow, or restart a stopped workflow, stop a workflow, or delete a workflow, all depending on your permissions. Workflow Manager has a lot of advantages to provide you with a lot of asset process management tools, making it easier to interact between people, making it easier to track and keep everything together, and make it easier for management to be able to measure. One thing we didn't show is that you also have the ability to export the information and maybe use it in Excel or in an external database to create a pie report or whatever that could be useful. So that is Workflow Manager for you. If you have any questions, just look at our website www.moksa.com and contact us. Thank you very much. See you later.